Before we get into today's stories, check out dreadsarmy.com, where I release strange and weird news every single day. Now let's get to the stories. I work at the Taco Bell on West Country Road in Merrill, Wisconsin. And just like they say, we're open late. So I'm like low guy on the totem pole there. And I always get stuck closing up with this guy who's lazy as all get out. But I gotta keep this job. So whatever. If he doesn't do it, I gotta do it. And I'm not going to complain to my manager and be known as a rat. No one likes a rat. I really wanted to get home that night, because some days I've just had it, And here it is after 3 in the morning and I'm still mopping up the floor while the other guy keeps going into the bathroom to avoid doing any work. So I grab the trash and haul it outside, even though I've done everything on my list. I got out to the dumpster, which is kind of in a shed with 3 sides. And I come around the corner and I see this thing scoot back behind the dumpster. I thought it might be a homeless guy or something, because it's so late, so I just yelled, "Hey." By the way, I ain't got no problem with anyone living in the street, but he needed to get out of there. Nobody answers me, so I stop because I've got to unlock the padlock, and I can't see who's back there. For all I know, it's someone who's going to mug me. I didn't know what to do, so I just yelled, "I'm calling the cops." And then I hear a growl, really loud and mean sounding, and I'm like, what? Because I thought I saw a person walk behind there. But maybe I was wrong, because now it sounds like a big dog, that low growl that they have. So I did something kind of stupid then. I just picked up a rock and threw it at the dumpster, thinking the noise on the metal would scare it off. But instead, this thing rushes straight out at me, and sweet Jesus, I've never seen nothing like that before. It was on 2 legs like a man and bigger than me, but it looked like a dog's head on it, with a muzzle and everything. And I could see teeth because it was snarling. I just dropped the bag of trash and ran for the door, because my mind couldn't understand what that thing was. But I still knew it was going to eat me. I got to the door and that loser Stan had locked the frickin' lock, because that's the policy here after hours. You lock it even if you're going out for just a minute. So I got the key in my hand, but I'm shaking so bad I can't get it in the lock, and I can't see Stan anywhere. I looked over my shoulder, and thank God that thing must have gone after the trash bag instead, because it's not behind me. I managed to get the key in the lock, and got inside and locked it. I'm breathing so hard I thought I'd had a heart attack. I told Stan there was this weird creature like a werewolf out there, and he laughed at me. Of course. I guess I would have laughed if he told me that. But I can tell you right now, this thing was real. It was covered in dog fur or wolf fur, and it had a big head like a dog and stand-up ears. I didn't get a good look at its paws, but its eyes were yellow and it had these big teeth. It was definitely walking on 2 legs because it came at me that way. I don't know about a tail. We left like 15 minutes later, but I wasn't parked near the dumpster, so I just hurried over to my car and got in and locked the doors. I cruised by on the road to the other side where you can see the dumpster, but the thing was gone, or hiding behind it, maybe. I even told my manager about it, because I don't want to work the closing shift anymore, and he thought I was making this up. So the only thing that I can think to do is maybe go over there some night when I'm not working and sit in my car facing that dumpster with my camera ready. I figured I need a picture for anyone to take me serious. And who knows, I might even be able to sell a picture like that to a magazine or something. So stay tuned, because you'll be the first to know, Donovan, when I get a picture of that thing. Thanks for all your help getting these stories out there, man. I think you're a real stand-up guy. Hello, Donovan. I know you tell a lot of crazy paranormal stories on your channel, so I figured I would send this for you to read, so I can get some sort of idea what is going on with this dude named Larry. I worked at a coffee shop for a while, and it was a pretty chill job. You got to meet all kinds of people, and most of them were excited to get their coffee. It was a 9-to-5 type of job, and I had all sorts of jobs with crazy hours, so the normalcy was refreshing. Every single day for the past year, our first customer was this man named Larry. He was always in a rush and always got black coffee. Occasionally, I could get some pleasantries out of him, but most of the time, he just stared bloody daggers at me until I got him his coffee. It got to the point where we would open about 5 minutes early and have his coffee ready for him. so we could just hand it through the window. He would often grab the coffee, pay, and leave without saying a word. He was a very strange individual, but he always made me laugh. He wasn't the biggest fan of human interaction, but he sure did love his coffee. He always had a very serious and wide-eyed expression on his face, and I never saw him smile. Then one day, he just stopped showing up. I would still open the shop about 5 minutes early out of habit, but he stopped coming altogether. I began wondering what happened to him. Did he move? Did he start getting his coffee from somewhere else? Did I somehow offend him? After about a week, I started looking into it a little bit. All I knew was his first name, Larry, but I was determined to figure out what happened. He wasn't the biggest talker, but I knew if I could just talk to him, he would let me know why he stopped coming. I searched Larry and filtered for our city on Google, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I couldn't find anything at all. I eventually just figured he had moved and tried not to think about it. About a month went by and I saw Larry's black car coming through the drive-thru again. It was much later in the day than I usually saw him, and he had this smile on his face, something I never thought I'd see. I was excited to see him even though we'd barely spoken before. I asked him if he wanted his usual, and he asked what his usual was. I kinda laughed because the man ordered the same thing at the same time for an entire year. I told him that he always got a large dark roast coffee, and he said he'd like a green tea. I sort of joked with him that he was switching it up a little bit, and he laughed and laughed. His laugh seriously disturbed me. My joke wasn't that funny, and he had tears streaming down his face and a deep bellowing laughter. He kept laughing harder and harder, and he stared directly into my eyes the whole time. I nervously laughed along, but something wasn't right. This wasn't the Larry that I knew at this point. His laughter and his face had me fearing for my safety. I politely waved him on and closed the window, but he stayed by the window leaning towards me. He was laughing so hard that he was spitting all over the window. His eyes looked different. I couldn't see the white in his eyes at all anymore, and I wondered if he was having a stroke or something. I picked up the phone to call the police when he just sped off. It was seriously disturbing. My coworkers all asked what the hell was wrong with Larry, but when I told them what had happened, they just kind of laughed it off, but I was freaked out. I finished my shift and headed to the grocery store to get something to cook for dinner. When I got out of the store, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a black car. I really didn't want to believe it was Larry's car, so I just got my car and headed home. Sure enough, the black car pulled up right behind me and started following me. I looked in the rearview mirror, and it was Larry with his black eyes and a huge creepy smile. I was seriously freaked out, and I just sort of pretended not to see him and kept driving down the road. Every turn I took, he closely followed. I eventually started driving randomly and erratically to see if he kept following me. Without hesitation, he closely followed every turn I made. I eventually called the police and told them that a regular customer of mine was now stalking me. He seemed incredibly dangerous. They asked me what my car looked like and told me to drive straight to the police station. I did as they asked, and as soon as I pulled into the station, Larry took off down the road. I thanked the officers, and they told me I couldn't get a restraining order against him unless I had some undeniable evidence that he was stalking me. I felt helpless, but I figured the worst was over, and I headed home. Waiting in the parking lot of my apartment building was Larry in his black car, with a terrifying smile on his face. His mouth was huge and his eyes were pitch black. I drove by and I went to sleep at my parents' house that night. The next morning at work, I was freaked out that he might be there to get his coffee or green tea, but I didn't see him. I was incredibly relieved, and I went on as if nothing had happened. When I got to my apartment, there were hundreds of completely full cups of coffee from the shop that surrounded my bed. It was as if he saved every single cup he had brought for me and not had a single sip from any of them. I had my parents help me move out of there immediately, and I quit my job at the coffee shop. The only thing that I can figure is that Larry is possessed. His facial expression, his behavior, and his eyes all look like that. I do admit, though, that this is not my area of expertise. Do you have any idea what I'm dealing with here? I haven't had any experiences with him since, but I'm living in constant fear that I might see him again. Hey Donovan, I really like your show and I've been meaning to share this with you for a while. But I used to own a campground near Grand Lake, Colorado. Grand Lake's a glacier lake, so it's cold. You can't really swim in it, even in the summer. But tourists come to go on boat rides around it because it's very scenic. So my campground was just outside of town on a dirt road. We had 30 RV hookups, 10 campsites for tents, and 11 cabins. Also showers, laundry room, and an office. I lived in a little apartment above the laundry, and it was great really. I hired a few people to help out, like townies and a few transient types who headed down south for the ski resorts for winter to work. But then, one day, this guy comes into the office with a photo on his phone. He was staying at the farthest RV spot from the office. I can't remember, but he had some kind of camper trailer, maybe even a pop-up. He was staying in with his girlfriend. He looked to be in his 60s. I figured he was retired, but I didn't think about it too much. Lots of people come and go and mostly don't stay for more than a week. This guy had been there a couple days, I think. I've been working on payroll for the week, worrying as usual about whether I had too many people on staff and how I was going to make it through the winter. From November to April, I catch a few odd jobs in town, like driving one of the country snowplows, but it's never easy. When this guy walked in, I felt a cold breeze. Maybe not a breeze, more like a little freeze in my gut. It made no sense because when he checked in, the guy was friendly enough, talking about the weather, hiking, and photography. That was his hobby. I figured he just wanted to complain that the washer ate his quarters, something like that. So I smiled and said hi, and he said, "I got something to show you." He had a laptop computer under his arm, and he put it on the counter and opened it up, and this photo filled the screen. It was dark. I had no idea what I was looking at. "You see those red eyes?" he said. I looked closer and maybe saw 2 red dots off to the side of the blurry trees. I guess they were. "Maybe," I said. "Wish I could have got a better shot," he said. "That there's a mothman. I'm sure of it." So he started to tell this story about how he got up early wanting to walk down to the overlook to get a photo of the sunrise. He heard something like huge wings flapping and turned around. Through the trees he saw this man-shaped thing, only it had huge wings and no face. Like where the face should have been, there was nothing except for these large red eyes. He grabbed the camera from around his neck and got off a shot at it, just before it flew into the sky. He wanted to try for another picture, but the sky was so dark that he knew he wouldn't get anything. "Wish I'd thought I'd take a video," he said. "The sound of those wings would have picked up on the mic for sure." I didn't really believe him. I never even heard of the Mothman before. I figured he'd just seen a hawk or something. Lots of them out there. The next day, he and his girlfriend took off, and I pretty much forgot about it. A couple weeks later, though, things got weird. People would come and set up and leave the next day. They never said why. They'd just break their reservations and go. We were losing so much money that I was sure I'd never have enough for winter. The employees started quitting. Finally, after a couple weeks of this, I cornered Jimmy, who runs the laundry and the shower rooms. He cleans, collects the quarters, and fills the machines, all that stuff. "They're scared of the Mothman," he said. "Oh, come on," I said, "Larry, that's crazy." He showed me a picture on his phone, but it just looked like grainy blackness. The photo, he said, was from Bob, who used to cut the grass at the campground. Bob quit the week before. I wasn't scared of this thing, but I was scared I'd never make any money off the place again. Then one couple came with a small tent, and I gave them the furthest campsite, near the pond. On the day they were supposed to leave, Jimmy found all their things still there, but they were gone. We waited a day and they still hadn't returned. We called the county sheriff and he took all their stuff for evidence. No sign of them. Before we let anyone else have that site, I went out and looked at it. The sheriff guys had tromped all over it. But off near the woods, I saw some weird markings in the dirt. They were kind of line-like tracks, but claw-like sort of. I looked up what moth's feet looked like, and they could have been big moth feet. I don't know. I wasn't really sure. Anyway, I was tired of not knowing what was going on, so one day I got up really early and went to the edge of the campground where it meets the woods and just stood there looking for a while. You know how your eyes take a while to get used to the dark? And when they do, you slowly start to see more. That happened, and then I saw something standing there at the edge of the woods. It was pretty far away, but I saw the red eyes. there was this huge loud flapping sound, and then this thing was gone. That's when I decided to sell the campground and move to Florida. Let me know what you think about these stories in the comments below. Also, make sure to check out dreadsarmy.com, where you'll find all of my stories and multiple strange and weird news posted every single day. If you want to be part of the discussion, check out the forums on Dread's Army. We also have a Facebook group so you don't miss out on any updates. Thanks and take care.